We're standing at my family home, the house that burnt down during the fire. I feel sad, like the memories are coming back. I thought I'll be better since being here before, but it's actually every time I come back, it gets worse and worse.
I think we started filming this documentary a week after the wildfires. The purpose of the documentary is to focus on what it is to be someone who survives a natural disaster a year later. I think a lot of people focus on the actual disaster, but I really want to focus on what a family looks like through a year post a tragedy.
Can you talk to me about what the economic background is? Because people hear like you own your own house and they think you have a lot of money.
No, it's middle-class families working together for the American dream. Some people are more wealthier than others, but a lot of the people here bought their homes in the 70s or 80s to just pass it down to their families. So it's just been generational houses passed down. My grandmother and grandfather bought the house in 1975 for $35,000. They raised my mom, my aunt, my uncles here. And then after that, I was born here. We kept the house. I want to rebuild, and we're going to rebuild so we can have the generational wealth again. And I feel like generational wealth, if it can be attained, is very important to keep.
I think it's really important to understand the history that informs how Altadena came to be Altadena, so we can really understand what it is that we're preserving and restoring. I don't really know any other way to explain it or describe it, except for just this really unique and beautiful and wonderful place that could have served as a model for communities across the country as far as what does it look like to live in an integrated neighborhood, to live integrated. It's no secret that one of the biggest passages of wealth from generation to generation happens through homeownership. Like how would things have been different if we got to keep that 40 acres and a mule post-slavery, right? Because it was widely understood even then that in order for the newly freed population to have any shot at economic independence, land ownership was a crucial component of that. Had that land been able to be retained by the formerly enslaved population, by the Black people in the South, it would be worth over $60 billion today. And so when we see these racial wealth gaps, it's informed by something, it's not just arbitrary. The national rate of Black home ownership is just over 40%, but not in Altadena. In Altadena, the rate of Black home ownership was almost 80%. I do think that there are some relevant and significant moments in history and policies that kind of culminated to create the demographic distribution that we see in Altadena. Post-Depression era, the federal government really stepped in, and a part of that was the creation of something called the Homeowners Loan Corporation. And it was a map which ranked neighborhoods by relative risk to lenders. They instituted a color-coded rating system that was really intended to see what areas were riskier than others. And this really became the modern-day precursor to redlining. It's also important to understand what was going on in surrounding communities, namely Pasadena, and how that affected the demographic distribution in Altadena. And so at one point in the 40s in Pasadena, almost 60% of the homes had racially restrictive covenants attached to them, which meant that they couldn't be transferred to a non-white person. So Black people in Pasadena faced significant opposition to being able to purchase there, and Altadena was easier. In this period of the 1950s and 1970s, you had something called urban renewal, which was a part of an overarching policy created in 1949 that was really intended to revitalize neighborhoods. But what often ended up happening, it gave license for minority areas and predominantly Black areas to be deemed as blighted and therefore completely destroyed, with newer developments being erected in their place. A lot of those people relocated to Altadena, right? And so that's how you kind of see over time the ethnic population of Altadena coming to be, and the fact that Altadena had a Black home ownership rate that was almost double the national average is not an accident. And then finally, as we're kind of going along our history lesson, one other significant policy and moment in history that affected not only Altadena, but really communities across the country was in 1956, the passage of the National Interstate and Defense Highways Act, which allocated significant funds for the construction of an interstate freeway system. And look, transportation is not a bad thing. So in and of itself, this policy is not a bad thing, but what was bad is how it gave city planning departments, who were often racist, license to erect physical barriers to segregate neighborhoods. And that's why in communities across the country, in major cities across the country, you have the freeway intersecting predominantly minority communities, and you've got one side of the freeway and another side of the freeway. And often that one side of the freeway is the minority community, and is often an area of disinvestment, less resources. That was not an accident, right? And so the same thing happened in Pasadena with the construction of the 210 freeway. It primarily displaced communities of color, many of whom relocated to, yes, Altadena. And then finally you had, 1968, the passage of the Fair Housing Act, which was great. It was a great piece of legislation. It made it illegal to discriminate on the basis of race, among other protected classes, in the sale, rental, and financing of housing, right? And so that was good, because now these things were illegal. And so then you had a lot of Black people enter Altadena. I mean, at its peak, the Black population in Altadena in the 90s was over 40%, down to now 18% in the 2000s. And again, that's because of this displacement and often gentrification that had been happening in Altadena even pre-fire. I was talking to one family whose parents and grandparents had been in Altadena for quite some time, and they were like, look, Altadena was great because, at a time where you were experiencing a lot of white flight, the white people in Altadena, when the Black people started to move in, the ones that stayed were cool, right? And so you had this like coexistence of people who had different ethnic backgrounds, all just living in harmony and living together. Altadena is so unique in its diversity, not only its ethnic diversity, because it was absolutely that, but also its socioeconomic diversity and diversity of thought and neighbors who did life together in a really meaningful way. And so Black people really found respite and solace in a community in Altadena and welcoming environment.
Altadena is not for sale. What I would like people to know, she's so much more graceful than I am. I'm still mad, actually. 8 months in, she's so forgiving and again, graceful. I think that's through your faith. I'm still mad because it's not just about a fire, it is political. So I want people to know this goes way deeper than just someone losing a family home. We're losing a culture, we're losing an economy, and the ripple effect of this is going to be felt for generations.
Shortly after the fire, UCLA put together a study analyzing the impacts of the Eaton fire on the population of Altadena. And what they found, again, was not surprising, but illuminating nonetheless. And that was that there was a disproportionate impact on communities of color, and particularly the Black community. Specifically, 61% of Black households in Altadena were located within the fire perimeter, as compared to only 50% of non-Black households, despite the fact that Black people in Altadena only comprised 18% of the population. And so I'll say that again, 61% of the homes located in 61% of Black households in Altadena were located within the fire perimeter, even though Black people only comprised 18% of the population, as compared with 50% of non-Black households, right? Similarly, almost half of Black households were destroyed or sustained significant damage, as compared with 37% of non-Black households. And that is significant, again, because it points to this disproportionate impact, and because Black people only comprise 18% of the population in Altadena. And so really, this fire threatens to exacerbate that and accelerate the mass exodus of the Black population out of Altadena if we don't do something and are really intentional about ensuring that this community can remain.
It is extremely rare for a Black community to even have generational wealth being passed down or making enough money to even make it sustainable. So that's why for me, I was looking forward to having the family house to always fall back on. Because it was like my safety net in a way, and my cousins, we all knew no matter what, we move, anything happens, we can go back to grandma's house. And that's how she always wanted it for us.
Our mission at Greenline is to close the racial wealth and homeownership gaps and reverse the effects of systemic racism in housing that have happened through practices such as redlining, among other forms of legal housing discrimination. And we really undertake this mission in 3 core areas. One is homeownership access for Black and brown people. That includes down payment grants, recognizing that because of this lack of access to generational wealth building through homeownership, oftentimes the down payment is a really significant obstacle for Black and brown people, and specifically Black people, in accessing home ownership. In fact, statistically, our white brothers and sisters receive assistance with the down payment when purchasing their first home, assistance from a family member when purchasing their first home, almost 50% of the time, compared to our Black brothers and sisters who receive that same assistance from family only 10% of the time. So really, Greenline is stepping in to be that family member and provide that down payment to help get access. And then second is homeownership preservation, because what we were finding is that while access to homeownership is a crucial component of closing these gaps, it's in and of itself incomplete without the proper tools and mechanisms in place to make sure that the home is protected and positioned to be passed to the next generation. And then third and finally is financial education, which is really a through line of all the components, because it's a condition of receiving a grant, but it's also available as a free resource before, during, and after purchase, just to make sure that people can maintain their financial house and make sure that their financial house is in order, because there are a lot of implications to homeownership. Greenline is a nonprofit organization that was founded in 2020. So we have been Pasadena-based since our inception 5 years ago. And so our mission of homeownership access, homeownership preservation, and financial education is something that we were doing even pre-fire. And then post-fire, we've expanded the scope of what we offer, really with the community of Altadena in mind, and restoring the Black community there and coming alongside homeowners who lost their home in the fire. So they're separate but related in terms of what they do. We have 4 application cycles throughout the year, 1 each quarter. And so people can go to our website and figure out what they want to do, which application cycle they want to be a part of. They can submit an interest form, and then when the next application window opens, they'll be notified and sent a link to the application. As far as it pertains to Eaton fire relief specifically, we launched 5 days after the fire because we saw the writing on the wall, because we were an organization already in the community, and frankly, because we know what often happens after natural disasters in our community, right? We launched a 2-phase, 4-component Eaton fire relief plan, and Phase 1 really involves interim housing stability and support and rental assistance, and that is helping Black and brown homeowners who lost their home in the Eaton fire locate, procure, and pay for long-term temporary housing in or as close to the community as possible, because we know that the further away people are displaced to, the less likely they are to return, right? And so we want to prevent this mass exodus of the people and the communities that make the fabric of Altadena so unique. So interim housing support for us looks like rental assistance and subsidizing rents up to $40,000 per family or 1 year. So that's phase 1. And then phase 2 is, recognizes that so many people were underinsured before the fire, and there will be gaps for the people who want to rebuild in and above what FEMA or insurance will cover. And so we're offering rebuilding assistance grants of up to $250,000 per family to bridge the gap between what people have from their insurance payouts and what they need in order to rebuild. And that is a bona fide grant. It does not need to be repaid. And while the magnitude of what's needed is significant and grant funds alone won't do it, we firmly believe that grant funds have to be a part of the equation, lest people have to exhaust all of their equity that they worked so hard for in order to just get back to baseline, right? And so that's why for us, our rebuilding assistance looks like grants. And then phase 2B for us is land banking and community preservation. And that is really purchasing lots from people who don't want to rebuild, whether they be an investor who owned multiple lots, who doesn't even live in the community and doesn't want to deal with it, or some of our senior population who just said, I don't have the energy to rebuild, but I want to make sure that my lot goes to an organization or an individual that cares about the community long term. My hope is that the community of Altadena is not only restored, but that we reimagine what it can be, right? Recognizing that even for as great as Altadena was, and it was, there were still issues and obstacles and challenges that the community was facing from an equity standpoint in a lot of ways, from a housing affordability standpoint, right? From a displacement standpoint. And so I hate to use the word opportunity, but I feel like there is a chance for community and stakeholders and policymakers to really make beauty from the ashes of this tragedy by addressing some of those issues and tackling some of those issues that were present before the fire to even restore Altadena to better than what it was before. That is my hope for the community, that people who want to live here can live here, that there is accessibility for all types of people, all incomes of people, so that we can maintain the ethnic diversity and socioeconomic diversity of Altadena, that we have small business incubators and that small businesses have a pathway to be able to stay and remain in the community, and we can really support and bolster the wonderful small businesses that were here before the fire, that we can make sure that they return. And again, that we can use this tragedy to reimagine and to co-create something that is beautiful by us and for us.
I would like people to know that Altadena is a tight-knit community. We're all still here. Even after the fires, you still saw friends and family coming out to try and ask if you need help, do you need anything, are you okay? What I learned too, it's not who shows up for you when it first happens, it's about who's there after the fact and after when everyone else forgets. The process has helped me in the fact that I had to come to terms with it, being able to speak about it, having lunch and catch-ups. I started a diary. It's been really healing in the sense of I'm talking through it. It's not just all in my brain. I can get it out. Also, I knew my story would be told the way I wanted it told, no edits, no anything else.
Yeah, sorry, that's gonna make me cry.
It's okay.
See, I'm the crier, she's chill. I just really appreciate that you entrusted us with that. That's amazing. Sorry, I'm such a wimp.